Hello, fight fans, and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest today is a lightweight MMA athlete with a professional record of 7 wins with only 1 defeat. His amateur record is 12 wins with only 3 defeats. He is the former almighty lightweight champion, the former Combat Challenge lightweight champion, the former made for the cage lightweight champion. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under the guidance of his coaches Aaron Nesbitt and Sean Colfer. He trains out of the dungeon at BJJ and hails from Thornaby-on-Tees, Mr. Kieran Lister. Kieran, thank you so much for joining us, my brother.
Cheers, Saif. Thanks for having me on the podcast, mate.
I bet it felt like you were coming out to a fight with that announcement, didn't it, my friend?
yeah, you've done that before, mate. It's good.
Thank you, brother. Kieran, it's been a while, man. I've been trying to get you on this podcast, brother. You've been ducking and diving.
I know, mate. We've been busy, but we finally got around to it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, brother. Because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and I've had Decky Macaleenan on, is your last fight was on Cagewarriors 120 against Decky Macaleenan. So he's told us his side. Can you share with us what you knew about Decky? What was the game plan? And then talk us through the fight as well, my brother.
Yeah, so when we got offered the fight, we had a look at Decky, as we always do. We look at the fighters, and he's no mug, you know. He's a really good opponent for us. We knew it would be a tough fight. And going into it, I knew he did a bit of karate from a young age. He was a good striker, good all-round striker. And yeah, in the fight, I feel like I probably edged it. Me personally, I think I won rounds 1 and rounds 3. I'd give round 2 to him maybe, but overall, I think I maybe should have got the decision win. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know, it's a draw. It's not a loss. So plenty to work on, and on to the next one.
For sure, brother. Now you say you possibly edged round 1, round 3, and you give him round 2. Can you talk us through that mindset of why you think you did enough on round 1, round 3, and he did enough on round 2?
Yeah, so round 1 we came out. I was feeling him out on the feet. He's quite awkward. He was like 6'1" for the lightweight division. You know, it's quite a rangy size for the lightweight. So the plan was to get it to the ground. I felt like that's where I'd be more dominant. So I hit the takedown eventually, but he managed to reverse me straight away, which was a nice reversal. And then I managed to get the butterfly sweep shortly after that. And then I finished the round on top, landing strikes, elbows. Round 2, same game plan. I came out, hit the takedown, and then the referee actually stood us back up because he obviously didn't think there was enough activity, which was fair enough. It probably wasn't. And then that's when Decky caught me with the big overhand left, and we went to the ground. And I managed to scramble. I managed to finish that round back on top. And round 3 again, we came out and I managed to get the takedown, and I actually finished the round on his back, landing shots. So, I mean, you could argue maybe he scored a 10-8 round in round 2, but me personally, I don't think it was a 10-8 round. I feel like I say, for the first 2 minutes, I was on top, I was in control. And apart from that big shot, even at the end of round 2, I managed to finish the round on top. So I feel like I might have edged the fight, but like I say, it is what it is. You know, it's not a loss, it's a draw, and plenty to work on. So I was happy with the result.
For sure, like you said, it's not a loss, it's a draw. But do you think your paths will cross again, or will it be a while if that was to happen?
Yeah, I think we might meet again in the future. I mean, obviously, you never know in this sport; anything can happen. But if we do meet again and we get offered the fight, I'd take it. I feel like I could get the edge on him again, and hopefully get the win this time. You know, we've been working on a few things, staying more busier when I'm on top to land more strikes so we don't get stood up. So yeah, we might meet again in the future. Who knows? You know, there's a lot of lightweight fighters in the roster in Cagewarriors, so you've got a big selection to pick from. So it is what it is. We might do.
For sure, brother. Now, one of the things I've talked about is with other fighters is about when fights end up in the judges' hands, and how sometimes with judges, they can have their own kind of unconscious bias. You know, they might be from a striking background, so they might kind of highlight that more than what they are from the grappling background. So there's always that worry if you leave it in the hands of the judges, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're definitely right, mate. Like you say, if maybe maybe them judges on the night were from more of a boxing background, so they've seen the big knockdown, and that's why that they scored Decky, obviously the big 10-8 round possibly. You just don't know. And like you say, it's always a bit of a risk when you leave it to the hands of the judges, because they might be from a jiu-jitsu background, they might be from more of a striking background. So it's always best to get the finish, but it's easier said than done sometimes. So yeah, you're right. You're definitely right, mate.
Have you had, is it 2 draws in your professional career?
Yeah. So that was actually my second draw. My first draw was on Bellator. I think it was in Birmingham a few years back. And I fought a lad from SBG Ireland, Konstantin Nusariov, I think his name was. And that was another close fight. He was more the dominant wrestler. And I think he probably won rounds 1 and 3. But in the second round, I managed to reverse the position on the floor, and I was landing heavy shots, which probably scored me a 10-8 round. So, but yeah, that was my second draw. I'm sick of getting draws. I just want to win or a loss. Do you know what I mean?
For sure, brother. For sure, man. Well, one of the things I want to ask you, brother Kieran, is about your martial arts journey. So, from a younger age, what sort of sports and disciplines did you get into, and talk us through that timeline to where you are now?
So I left school, and I wasn't really into the popular sports like football or like rugby, stuff like that. I was just into staying fit and keeping active, really. So I was actually in a pizza shop takeaway with my mates one day, and on the side there was a few flyers advertising Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the Dungeon Gym in Thornaby. And I thought, oh yeah, I'll definitely try that. It's something I fancy doing. So I went down with a couple of my mates, and they never really got a feel for it, but I really enjoyed it. So it just went from there, really. I fell in love with the jiu-jitsu part. I started competing in jiu-jitsu more, and it built my confidence up. And then my coach from Thornaby, Sean Colfer, he asked me, he said, what would you think about competing in MMA? And straight away I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like I could do it. And he said, well, have a think about it, see how you feel, take your time. And I started competing more in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and kickboxing tournaments. And from there, my confidence just grew. And then I had my first amateur fight. And then I got the win on the night. I managed to get a submission win. And that's just how my career started building, really. I just went from there. But like I say, when I first got asked that, I didn't want to compete in MMA at all. I didn't feel like I was confident enough to do it. And then gradually, as time went on, I got more confident through the competitions. And yeah, we just went from there, really.
And what was it that made you think, oh, I'm a bit reluctant to go into MMA? Was it the fact that, because you're used to maybe competing and training and utilizing the gi, or was it the fact that maybe your striking wasn't as proficient as your groundwork?
Yeah, it was a few factors, really. I think just as I was a teenager, I didn't really have a lot of confidence in myself. And then as I started training my jiu-jitsu and I won a few competitions, that's when my confidence started to build. And obviously, my bread and butter is my jiu-jitsu, so that's what I always felt was more dominant. But in the amateur fights, especially, there wasn't any headshots, there wasn't any strikes to the head, so I did feel quite confident going in there. I could rely on my jiu-jitsu, my wrestling to get the win. So, but yeah, like I say, as time went on, my confidence grew, and then I just fell in love with the sport of MMA, and we just went from there.
And are you still involved in jiu-jitsu, as in like competing, or you kind of focus fully on MMA?
Yeah, I'd still compete in jiu-jitsu when I get the opportunity. Obviously, signing the contract with Cagewarriors, they don't want you to compete in any jiu-jitsu tournaments when you're in a fight camp with them. Obviously, risk of injuries and things like that. So I probably haven't competed in jiu-jitsu as much as I'd like to, especially with the pandemic going on. But yeah, it's something I definitely continue doing. I still have a good love for jiu-jitsu to compete. Yeah.
The only thing about jiu-jitsu competitions, brother, and this is from a personal point of view, is, as a spectator, you got to pay. But as a competitor, you got to pay as well. And it kind of sometimes it ends up being a long day. You're there for hours. You might get 2 matches if you're lucky. Is that something that you think about, or do you just kind of focus on the competing and don't worry about paying and how long you're there for?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right, mate. Like you say, especially as you progress through the belts. I mean, obviously, I'm black belt now. It is a very long day. You've got to wait till right at the end of the day because you can guarantee that they save the highest belts till last. So you probably don't get fighting till about 6 o'clock, and you could be there from 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's a long day. And like you say, you have to actually pay to compete. Whereas in MMA, you can get the ticket sales, you get the fight purse, so you're getting money through it. But with jiu-jitsu, you have to actually pay to compete on the mat. So yeah, you're definitely right. You're definitely
and is
right.
that even as a black belt? Do you still have to pay as well?
So yeah, I know a lot of companies now do black belts free entry. So that's not really a problem now. But especially when I was the lower belts, white belt, blue belt, purple belt coming through, you had to pay to enter. And then, like you say, it's with the MMA, you have the advantage where you're getting paid to compete. So that's definitely a better thing to the MMA competition, definitely.
Well, who knows, brother? Maybe the format might change. Maybe they might think as competitors. Although because you don't get any ticket commission, maybe they'll think, but at least let's not charge the competitor and just focus on the spectators. That'd be better for everyone, right?
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, it's something to think about in the future.
For sure, brother. Now, you've been involved in martial arts for many years, brother. Is there any coaches or mentors that have played a significant role on this journey? And if so, who are they and what role have they played?
So the main two coaches that obviously played a huge part in my MMA career is me coach Sean Colfer. He runs the Thornaby Dungeon Gym, and me coach Aaron Naisbitt, who runs the Sunderland Dungeon Gym. So when I first started in my amateur career, I went to Sean Colfer in Thornaby. That's where I did all my training. And then as I started progressing, he introduced me to his coach, Aaron Naisbitt. He has the gym in Sunderland. So from there, they've just both took me like through my MMA journey. They've done both so much for me. So if it's definitely them two people if I have to give credit to anyone. So I've been with them since day one. They've took me to the professional athlete I am now. So
well, you can't go wrong there, brother. And it's like a family feeling. You have that loyalty and that relationship with them that you build up over those years, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, we're really a tight team, and it feels like we're almost like a family. So we've definitely built that strong bond up through the years.
And under the roof of the Dungeon BJJ, is there opportunities there for you to fine tune your striking skills, or do you kind of go and do your striking somewhere else and then come back as a homing pigeon to the Dungeon BJJ?
Yeah, so when I'm in a fight camp, usually I'll go to some other boxing gyms, maybe in Sunderland or around the Thornaby area, just to get me striking sharp, and might go to a few wrestling teams just to stay active. But like you say, my main MMA training will always take part in the dungeon from there. But yeah, it's always good to go to different gyms and get a feel for some different sparring partners. But it's been a bit more difficult with the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of gyms have been closing. So my last few fights in Cagewarriors, we've been doing it mainly in the dungeon. But as the restrictions start to ease again, it'll be nice to get back out and start getting through some boxing gyms, getting some sparring in with them.
Well, as a professional athlete, brother, you just got to adapt, can you, and try to do the best you can under the circumstances, right?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before on another podcast, it's just been good that I've been able to compete during obviously the pandemic. We've got a lot of amateur fighters coming up who they're just busting to get fights, but they can't because obviously with the pandemic, they're not professional athletes. They're not allowed to fight. So I'm grateful in that respect that I can still compete through the pandemic.
For sure. And hopefully we're over the hill and we're on our way down, and hopefully Boris Johnson will sort everything out in 2 weeks' time. Because I think you say, is it 17th of May, I think, is the next kind of date on the roadmap for everything to open up. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think he said that 17th of May is the next milestone in his plan. So hopefully we're on track for that and get things back to normal, get some crowds back in the stadiums, and hopefully that's the plan for the future.
Well, talking about crowds in the stadium, I saw the post-fight interview that Dana White did, because they had the crowds, on the UFC, and he was saying it's just unreal, the feel, the noise, the atmosphere that it creates. It's just madness, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And obviously the last few fights I've had on Cagewarriors, it's been without crowds. And I always remember my first fight on Cagewarriors. I was walking out, and I was saying to my coach, it feels like I'm not really walking out for a fight. You know, there was no like buzz or atmosphere about it. It was like really flat. So I had to sort of get myself a little bit more psyched up than usual. But yeah, like I say, I'm looking forward to getting the crowds back. You know, we usually have a good support and good crowd. So hopefully that'll happen in the near future.
Brother, you do have a good crowd, because when you fought on Combat Challenge, you brought some crowd there, brother. I remember you like my walking cash machine. I loved it. I loved you fighting.
Yeah. I always try and bring a good support with me. Like you say, it definitely helps in the fight. So yeah, hopefully we'll get that back soon, brother.
For sure. Now, you've had loads of fights, brother, and I ask this from all the athletes that what is your fight day routine? Because everyone's different. Some people put on some heavy rock music. Some people go to the changing room with their own pillow and they go to sleep for a couple of hours, you know, before they go out. Can you talk us through your fight routine before you actually go out into the arena?
Yeah, so to be honest, on fight day, I try and treat it as a normal day. Really, you know, obviously you still got the nerves, but I try and just stay as relaxed as I can. And sometimes my coaches will say to me, "Are you all right? You seem like really relaxed." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but you know, it's just the only time you need to really turn it on is when you're in the cage for me. So there's no point worrying about it hours before you get to the fight or whatever. So when I get to the venue, I'll chill out. I might lay down for a bit, put some music on, watch a few fights, just to get myself in the zone. And then when the fight starts going, that's when I'll start obviously warming up with my coaches, getting in the zone a little bit more. And then when I'm walking out of the fight, that's when I'll try and get in the zone mentally. But yeah, apart from that, I just, like I say, I try and treat it as a normal day, stay chilled until you actually have to get into the cage and have a fight.
So for you, it's as you're coming out into the arena and, you know, they call you out, is that when you flick the switch and you kind of get yourself in the zone?
Yeah. Especially when they call your name, you know, you get a shot of adrenaline, and that's when I say, right, you're going into a fight now. It's time to wake up. So, but yeah, apart from that, mate, I'm pretty chilled on fight day. To be honest, I just try and treat it as a normal day.
Well, because I've had you on the show, brother, and I'm thinking, look how relaxed that dude is. Because some people, because on that floor we had there's 3 warm-up rooms, and you know I'd always pop in and see how everyone's doing. And some of the fighters, they're hitting the pads like pa, because they're on about getting the kind of second win. You know, they want to get that adrenaline dump, and some people are just chilling out. You know, and everyone's different, aren't they, brother?
Yeah, of course. Everyone's different. You know, one thing that works for one person might not work for me, and vice versa. But for me, I've always been that way. You know, I've always tried to stay chilled right until you need to turn it on, and it's worked for me so far. So why change it if it works? Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, why change? There's no need to. Now, the other thing is, brother, out of all those fights you've had, is there any fight that has been the most rewarding? Some sort of adversity? You might have had an injury, a change of opponent. Is there any fight that's been rewarding that you could share with us, my brother?
Yeah, so probably one that sticks out was my third professional fight. It was on Almighty Fighting Championship. I fought a lad called Simeon Otley. And just before that fight got announced, I was in a jiu-jitsu tournament in Leeds, and I fractured my arm in one of the final fights, and I hadn't realised I'd fractured my arm. I was actually still training on it, and one day the pain was just unbearable, so I went to the hospital, and I got an X-ray, and it said, "Do you realise you've had a fractured arm for the past 2 weeks?" And I said, "No." So they put a full cast on my arm, and obviously I was still preparing for the Simeon Otley fight. I think it was maybe 10 weeks away, something like that. So I just started my fight camp. And through that fight camp, basically all I could do was just some basic training, you know, hitting the bag. And I was just working on things that I could basically. I had one full arm in a cast. And I actually thought about pulling out of the fight a few times. And my coach said, well, see how you go. Obviously, you can still train. And I managed to still make it through the fight camp. And I think I managed to get a knockout win in about 11 seconds in that fight. So I always see that as a huge milestone for coming over a bit of adversity, and I'll always remember that fight. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't pull out of the fight, because that result had never obviously happened. So that's one that sticks out for me.
Well, the risk is sometimes high, but the reward is really sweet, which is the case there. Now, for you, with some people, when they have an injury, you know, in fight camp and it's internal, people can't see it. How did you kind of keep that under wraps for so long, or, you know, that it didn't leak out that you had such an injury that could have been manipulated by Simeon or anyone else?
Mm-hmm. Well, so we just try to keep it. Obviously, I mean, we have like a tight team in the dungeon anyway. You know, I wasn't sharing any pictures of me training through my fight camp or anything. So no one really knew about it apart from my coaches and my team, and we just kept it obviously as quiet as possible. But yeah, like I say, I'm just glad I seen it through. Like there was a couple of times I thought about pulling out because of the injury, but once I got the cast off my arm, I managed to get back to full train and strengthen my arm back up, and yeah, it was one of my best performances to date. So I'm just glad I stuck at it and got the win on the night.
Brother, which arm had the cast on?
It was my right arm.
And which one did you hit Simeon with?
It was actually the left arm that connected, but so yeah, I'm a southpaw naturally, so my left hand's the power hand, right, but right. It was me jabbing hand, me speed hand that was in the cast.
And Simeon is one big dude because he's from Mabsy's gym at Gamefight, and he's fought on Combat Challenge, and he's just jacked, isn't he? He's huge, isn't he, for a lightweight?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the biggest lightweights I've ever fought. I remember going to the weigh-ins and we squared off, and I was looking at him, I thought, I can't believe you've made lightweight. You look like a friggin' middleweight, maybe. And then even on fight day, when I got in the cage and he'd rehydrate and obviously carved up, I was looking across and I thought, friggin' hell, I've got a fight on my hands here. But it ended up obviously just being 11 seconds long. So that's just MMA, you know. It can go either way, and it's a crazy sport. So anything can happen.
You're right, brother. It is. Now, you've had loads of fights. You're fighting at a professional level. You're fighting on premiership shows such as Cagewarriors. If there's other people who are competing at amateur and they're looking at taking that step and stepping over the threshold and competing at professional, from your knowledge and experience and any sort of hurdles or obstacles that you've had, can you share any knowledge and experience to those who are coming into the professional field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the main thing would just be just take your time. You know, there's no rush. There's no rush at all, especially in the sport of MMA. You know, there's so much to learn. Obviously, I'm still learning new techniques all the time. So for amateurs coming through the ranks, I'd say don't rush to get to the professional level. I mean, me personally, I think I had 15 amateur fights, 12 wins, 3 losses, and I'm glad I had my losses in my amateur career in a way, because they taught me to push through adversity and just not to get so sickened on a loss. Because, like I say, MMA, it's a crazy sport. You know, one punch could change the fight. Anything can happen. So that's the main thing I'd say to people coming through. Don't rush. You know, be patient. Take your time. Stick with the process, and just enjoy it as well. You know, we're not in the sport for forever. You know, we're going to retire someday. So just be in the moment and enjoy it while you can.
For sure. Well, I did a podcast with Paul Sutherland, who's the head coach of Trojan Free Fighters, and he's got a couple of athletes. There's Matt Figlak and his brother Mick Figlak, who compete on Cagewarriors. And one of the things Paul was saying is similar to what you said, is he doesn't want the fighters to rush the amateur side. So they've got to have at least 10, 11 fights, get used to the whole, you know, of winning, a bit of weight cutting, the adrenaline, the fight camp and losing, so that when it comes to them competing professional, they can clean the slate and then move forward. And you're in the same frame, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like you say, there's so much to learn in MMA. It's not like boxing or wrestling. It's not one discipline. You learn in 3 or 4 disciplines at the same time. So, like you say, there's really no rushing it. And even having more experience in amateur, having a few losses, help you come over that adversity. That's definitely what I found. So, yeah, no rush at all, mate. Like you say.
Brother Kieran, thank you so much. It took time, but thank you so much to get in on board and sharing your knowledge and experience. And hopefully I'll have you on the podcast after you've had your next fight, my brother.
Cheers, Saif. Yeah, definitely look forward to speaking to you in the future, mate.